Hey guys, this is Nathan and welcome to the Gaming 4. Today in this map review we're going to be covering a map called Hushwood, and this map was made by the twins. To start us off, this map got a 70 out of 100, which is actually a pretty good score, not obviously the best, but it definitely had some really good strengths to it. So one of the main strengths that really stood out with this map is that it included tons of food. Obviously we haven't seen this in a lot of maps that I've done in the past, but it was super refreshing and really nice just to be bombarded almost with food when you start out. And what's really nice about the food specifically is that most of it was natural vegetables and fruits, which allows the players to actually create a farm pretty much right away. Something else that was really good about this map is that it included also, besides food, it included a lot of clothing. And this really helps for making extra healing gear and also just giving the player some extra inventory space as they start out the game. Besides that, this map also covered the basics when it comes to vehicles. It could have maybe used a few more vehicles because I think it was a large map, but along with the vehicles it also included all the maintenance gear that goes along with having a vehicle. So it included, blowtorch, gas can, and I think even a car jack. Another notable thing about the map is that it is a large map, and because of that, there's obviously a lot of work that has been put into this. Moving on to some of the newer content, this map did include quite a few newer items, and this includes NPCs, and even some quests and vendors. So there's a lot of stuff to look forward to in this map, and obviously the map makers kept up to date in what they were putting into it. One of the last really good things that this map did include is that it included pretty much a lot of high tier gear and all the building materials required to create your higher tier gear. This included generators, all the basics such as cloth, metal scraps, wire, rope, and everything like that. Alright, so that's pretty much it for the pros of this map. Obviously there are going to be some few major cons that actually brought it down, but let's start getting into those. So the first thing that really hurt the map is that the detailing was very inconsistent. Now this is also sort of a pro and sort of a con. It means that those areas that were detailed very well were done like superbly. There are specific locations that were very well detailed and had a really good theme to them, but then other areas such as the larger cities and some of the larger buildings were just kind of empty in places. So, definitely something that can be worked on. Obviously it's a large map, so detailing the entire thing is very difficult as it is. A second thing that really hurt the map that really, has to do with the size is that even though this map was a large map, it really felt like it should have been a medium map. And this is because the amount of locations in this map were way too few. This map, because of that, had a ton of filler, and most of the filler was just wide open fields and like trees and small hills. And there was really way too much of that for this to be a proper large map. Now some stuff was added to sort of supplement that. There were some natural areas and wild animals and metal nodes, but really it would have been a lot better if the map makers considered shrinking down the size of this map to maybe a medium and then fitting everything into that. It really would have increased the quality of the map and made it a lot more interesting as you roam around and explore the places. Another one of the main issues that we found with the map is that it lacked pretty much every type of ranged weapon. There were ranged weapon spawns, but most of the higher tier ones and even the lower tier ones were almost just missing. It would have been really nice to see a few more, maybe Schofield, Hawkhound, and some of the basic rifles, as well as maybe a crossbow and some bows, something that has buildable ammo so that you can sort of maintain the ranged weapon and continue to get ranged ammo. Also, the higher tier weapons in the higher tier areas were really hard to get to. One of the only automatic weapons that we did find was a Peacemaker, and that was found in a dead zone. So it's super hard to even get to like a submachine gun, and it was even harder to find consistent ammo to even fill those guns. So obviously that's a big issue because it makes it really hard to progress into the more interesting, difficult areas of the map, and because of that, it sort of caps your survival at like a mid-tier range. So moving on to some of the smaller things, those were the main two issues. Something that I noticed as I was exploring the map is that there were actually way too many kitchen knives. Now it's a weird issue, and it's not necessarily like a game changer. It's really nice to have a starting melee weapon, especially a kitchen knife that's fast and damaging, but there really were way too many. At times I would go into a kitchen and I would find 3 or 4 of them in there, and it's just really weird and unrealistic to have that many knives in such a concentrated location. Something as well that I was noticing in kitchens, and you may have seen it in the footage, is that some of the countertops that he was using as counters or drawers on the ceiling were actually upside down so you could see through the bottom. Of course, again, that's a small issue, and it's really pretty quick to fix as well. And having those as a part of the map really made it kind of weird because it just seemed like the person who was making the map kind of just overlooked that section. The last thing that was really pretty minor is that the loading page was kind of low quality, and if you guys load into it, you probably will notice it. It kind of looked like it was 720p. In fact, if you took a screenshot and your monitor is 1080p, you would get a higher resolution picture than the one on the loading in page. So it really could have used to have better quality, and it really was just a little pet peeve that I noticed. So that's pretty much it for the weaknesses of this map. Obviously there weren't too many, but the few that it did have were pretty major, and it did make it kind of hard to progress later in the game. So overall, this was a good map. It was actually pretty easy to survive in. The main issues was that late game was super ultra impossible pretty much, and besides that, the map could have used a few more interesting locations. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Please like the video if you enjoyed it, and please subscribe if you want to see some more. I will see you all later.